You're about to hear what might be the world's oldest recorded joke. It was written down around 4,000 years ago in ancient Sumeria, and it goes something like this. Something which has never occurred since time immemorial. A young woman did not fart in her husband's lap. It's not exactly a knee slapper by today's standards. It reads more like a proverb, but there it is, etched on a clay tablet, a ghost of a laugh from a world that's turned to dust. This seems like our answer, right? The moment ancient humans started telling jokes. But what if I told you that isn't the real answer? Not even close. What if the first time humans truly got the joke happened millions of years before anyone knew how to write? What if the punchline is so much older, so much more profound, that it's written on a tablet, but inside our very DNA? To find the real origin of humor, we have to stop looking for words. We need to go back, way back, to a time before we were even human, and uncover a strange, involuntary sound that would become one of our oldest and most powerful survival tools. This isn't just the story of the first joke, but the first laugh, and why the difference between them is the story of humanity itself. Section 1. The quest for a punchline. Our search for the first joke feels like a job for an archaeologist. We imagine dusting off an ancient scroll and finding a perfectly preserved knock-knock joke. And for a while, that's what historians did. They looked for the first written evidence of a gag. The Sumerian fart joke from around 1900 BC is often called the world's oldest. It tells us that bodily functions have been a solid source of humor for at least 4 millennia. But it's not alone in the ancient comedy club. A few centuries later, around 1600 BC, the ancient Egyptians left us a collection of tales called the Qqlarck Papyrus. One story tells of a bored pharaoh, and his advisor suggests a fun afternoon. You sail a boatload of young women dressed only in fishing nets down the Nile, and urge the pharaoh to go catch a fish. It's a story that plays on a clever double meaning, showing a surprisingly sophisticated grasp of what we'd now call comedic structure. The pharaoh isn't just fishing for fish, and the Sumerians weren't done. From around 1700 BC, we have what some call the world's first bar joke. It's a bit cryptic, reading, "A dog walks into a tavern and says, 'I cannot see a thing. I'll open this one.' Now, this one's a puzzle." The humor is almost certainly lost in translation and cultural context. Maybe it's a pun in a dead language we'll never get. For us, the punchline has evaporated. For centuries, the search continued, eventually leading to the discovery of the Philologelos, or the laughter lover, a Greek collection from the 4th or 5th century AD. It's the world's oldest surviving joke book, with 265 jokes organized by character type. A favorite target is the scholasticus, or the absent-minded professor, a trope that's clearly timeless. To give you the flavor, one of the jokes, modernized a bit, sounds like a professor who, when asked how he's feeling by his doctor, says he has no idea because he hasn't looked at his own medical chart yet. It's all fascinating. It shows that as long as we've had writing, we've used it to record what makes us laugh. Farts, sex, wordplay, and people acting foolishly. But here's the problem. Writing is a brand new invention in the grand scheme of things. The Sumerians started writing around 3500 BC. That 4,000-year-old joke is a baby. Our species, Homo sapiens, has been around for about 300,000 years. Our genus, Homo, for over 2.5 million. Relying on written text to find the origin of humor is like trying to understand the origin of the ocean by looking at a single cup of water. We're missing millions of years of the story. The truth is, looking for a written joke is a misdirection. The real answer isn't an artifact you can hold. It's a behavior. To find the origin of humor, we don't need to look at ancient tablets. We need to look at our own bodies and the bodies of our closest relatives. Section 2. Before words, there was laughter. Somewhere in your memory, there's a moment you laughed so hard you couldn't breathe. A moment of pure, uncontrollable joy. Here's the strange part. You never chose to do it. You didn't decide to start laughing, and you certainly couldn't decide to stop. It just happened. This involuntary, primal, and deeply weird physical reaction is the real key to our mystery, because that reaction is ancient. Laughter, the raw sound, is millions of years older than language, and it's not even uniquely human. The first clue comes from an unlikely source. Rats. In the 1990s, neuroscientist Qqlarck made a wild discovery. When he tickled young rats, they let out a high-pitched, ultrasonic chirping sound. They'd chase his hand, seeking the tickle, and chirp every time. Punchline argued this was the rat equivalent of laughter, a sound associated with play. But the trail gets much warmer when we look at our own family tree. All great apes, chimpanzees, bonobos, gorillas, and orangutans laugh. When young chimps play fight and tickle each other, they make a distinct, breathy, panting sound. It's not the ha-ha-ha of human laughter. It's more like a handsaw, but it serves the exact same purpose. It's a signal that says, this is play. This isn't a real fight. We're good. In 2009, a groundbreaking study analyzed these tickle-induced sounds across all great apes, including us. The researchers found that the acoustic similarities mapped perfectly onto the evolutionary tree. You could tell how closely related two species were just by their laughter. The conclusion was stunning. The vocalization we call laughter can be traced back to the last common ancestor of all great apes and humans, who lived somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 16 million years ago. More recent work even suggests the basic rhythmic pattern of laughter has been stable for 15 million years. That means millions of years before there were any hominins, before Lucy walked the plains of Africa. The common ancestor of you and a chimpanzee was already making a sound that was the evolutionary precursor to your laughter. It was a sound of play, of safety, of social bonding, a joke with no words. But this just deepens the mystery. If laughter didn't evolve for jokes, what on earth is it for? Why did our ancestors spend millions of years refining this strange, noisy, involuntary spasm? The answer would come from a man who decided to study humans like an alien anthropologist, seeing us for the first time. Section 3. The Science of Ha-Ha. The late Robert Provine, a neuroscientist at the University of Maryland, dedicated his life to a simple question. Why do we laugh? Instead of lab coats and comedy specials, he just listened. He and his students went out to malls, plazas, and sidewalks, documenting thousands of real-world laughs. They wrote down who laughed, who spoke, and crucially, what was said right before the laugh. His findings turned our understanding of laughter completely upside down. First, he found that people are 30 times more likely to laugh in a social situation than when they're alone. Think about it. When you're by yourself, you might smile at something funny, but you probably don't burst out laughing. Laughter, Provine concluded, isn't an individual act. It's a social signal meant for other people. But his most shocking discovery was what triggered the laughter. Provine found that only about 10 to 15% of laughter was a response to anything remotely like a joke. Most of it followed totally mundane statements like, "I know, I'll see you later," or "It was nice meeting you too." And here's the kicker. Provine found that the person speaking was significantly more likely to laugh than the person listening. People were using laughter like punctuation, dotting their own sentences with little ha-has. It wasn't about humor at all. It was about affiliation, connection. It was a way of saying, we're on the same page, we're good. Laughter, Provine argued, is not a cognitive response to humor. It's a primal, instinctive social glue. As he put it, there was laughter long before there was humor. But why did our ancestors need social glue so badly? To answer that, we need to talk about fleas, nits, and the single biggest problem our ancestors faced: how to live in a group without killing each other. Section 4. The Grooming Dilemma. For most primates, building trust is simple. Grooming. Monkeys and apes spend hours picking parasites and dirt from each other's fur. This isn't just hygiene. The gentle touch releases endorphins, the brain's natural feel-good chemicals, creating a feeling of pleasure and contentment. Grooming is how primates build alliances and keep their societies together. But grooming has a fatal flaw. It's a one-on-one activity. This puts a hard limit on group size. Evolutionary psychologist Robin Dunbar calculated that for many primates, the time required for grooming keeps their social groups capped at around 50 individuals. Here's where our human story takes a dramatic turn. As our early ancestors moved onto the open savanna, they needed larger groups for protection and cooperation, but they couldn't spend all day grooming. They'd starve. They needed a more efficient way to bond. Dunbar's hypothesis is that our ancestors co-opted vocal tools to solve this problem, a kind of vocal grooming. The most powerful of these tools was eventually language, but another critical one was laughter. Think about it. Laughter is a perfect solution. A good, hearty laugh also triggers a flood of endorphins, giving you that same warm, fuzzy feeling of connection. But unlike grooming, laughter is scalable. You can't groom a dozen friends at once, but you can share a laugh with all of them. Laughter is, in essence, grooming at a distance. It's a broadcast signal of bonding that holds a large group together. This was the key insight. Laughter wasn't just a play signal anymore. It had become an essential tool for survival. Sometime around 2.5 million years ago, with the emergence of the genus Homo, our ancestors began living in larger groups. This strange, breathy sound was part of the toolkit that made it possible. It was the soundtrack to the building of the first human communities. And this ancient history is still alive in you, right now. Section 5. The ghost in the machine. Every time you laugh, you're channeling millions of years of evolution. That ancient social software is still running, and it explains so much. Take contagious laughter. Why do we laugh when others laugh, even if we don't know why? Evolutionary theory provides a powerful explanation. It's an ancient, unconscious signal to the group. We are safe. This is a moment of bonding. A laugh track on a sitcom isn't as dumb as it seems. It's a hack, artificially triggering our primal urge to join in. This perspective also explains the flip side. Why being laughed at is so painful. If laughter is the sound of an in-group bonding, being laughed at is the terrifying sound of exclusion. For our ancestors, being cast out of the group was a death sentence. That deep, primal fear of being ostracized is what you feel in the pit of your stomach when you become the butt of a joke. It's an ancient alarm bell, screaming, "Warning! Your connection to the tribe is at risk." This also explains why we laugh more and more freely with our close friends. It's not just because they're funnier, it's because laughter is a primary tool we use to constantly reinforce those bonds. An inside joke is the ultimate expression of this, a tiny burst of shared history, a password that instantly confirms you both belong to the same exclusive club. So, when did we finally get back to the fart jokes? When our ancestors developed language, they were handed a new and unbelievably powerful tool. They could now do something no other animal could. Take this ancient, involuntary, emotional reflex, laughter, and learn to trigger it on demand. A joke is a piece of cognitive technology. It's a verbal key, crafted to unlock a 15-million-year-old biological lock. The first person who figured out how to use words to make someone else laugh was wielding a new kind of power. They were demonstrating intelligence, social awareness, and the ability to manage the group's emotional state. Making the tribe laugh didn't just make you popular, it made you valuable. It was a display of fitness. Our journey started with a simple question. When did ancient humans start telling jokes? We went looking for a punchline on a clay tablet from nearly 4,000 years ago, and we found one. But the real answer took us so much further back millions of years, to a time before language, before fire, before we were recognizably human. We found the answer in the ultrasonic chirps of a tickled rat. We found it in the panting gasps of playing chimpanzees. We found it in the wiring of our own brains, in the code that connects a strange physical convulsion to our deepest need for social connection. The world's first joke wasn't about a fart, a pharaoh, or a dog in a tavern. It wasn't a joke at all. It was the breathless, involuntary sound of shared play between our ancient ape ancestors. It was a signal that said, "You are safe with me." It was a tool that allowed us to build trust, form larger tribes, and survive in a dangerous world. It's the sound that built the first human communities, millions of years before a single word was ever written down. The history of the joke is a red herring. The history of laughter is the history of us. If you enjoyed this dive into the ancient origins of our own behavior, consider subscribing. We explore the hidden histories of everything that makes us human. And let us know in the comments, what's a moment that made you laugh so hard you couldn't breathe?